Hello, friends. Welcome once again to this episode of Pathfinders. Pathfinders is a career guidance program run under the aegis of Viva Life Skills trainers and consultants. This time we have with us a very accomplished young corporate leader, Mandar Sathe. So Mandar comes with a hardcore background of software development and IT in general. In his 27 years of long career span, he rose to become a CEO of a global company. Now, how did he catch on to the nuances of various aspects of business, like finance primarily, then the business development, sales, marketing, and then human resource, and many other nuances of the entire business? So let's talk to him and understand and find out how his talk is going to help guide the youngsters take a decision to follow his path.
Thank you.
So, welcome Mandar to the show.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me on the show. Thank you.
Mandar, how did you choose this particular path of your career, and so how did it all begin?
Yeah, actually, it's a very good question because I always tell people that the IT field or the software field, as what it was called around 27 years back, it was not a chosen one for me, because I was one of the many people who kind of passed that 12th standard and were on that cusp of their career roadmap into, what sort of field we should choose.
Right.
One thing which I was very clear that I'm going to be pursuing an engineering career, but there actually computer science was one of the options, but then I eventually kind of heard my mind and then decided to pursue this as a career option, because when if you are in that age when you're trying to figure out what you're going to do in your life, computers was the in thing. And I thought, that could not be a very bad option. And I'm glad that it did not turn out to be a bad option. So eventually I chose this career basically.
Yes. So what sort of career trajectory did you have? I mean, I'm asking this question because I very distinctly remember about 25 years ago, the IT companies or software development companies were never headed by people who had a software background or IT background. They were all headed by people who were MBAs and IIT qualified, or they came from some other FMCG companies. But now the scenario has completely changed. People like you have evolved themselves into leading positions. So how did it happen with you?
Okay, cool. So in a true sense, I have had a typical, upward projection in my career like any other software professional. Having started my career as a software developer, right after my engineering, I got some great opportunities, obviously, to work within India. And I spent a significant amount of time in the countries like the US, UK, Singapore, and a few Asia Pacific countries as well.
Right.
And actually, that at that point in time, I was a pure play, a techie guy. Eventually, when we relocated to India around 15 years back, my international experience that I had acquired before that actually kind of get me that leverage to get some roles into the executive leadership, and that is when I sort of thought, okay, can I be this classic techno managerial person where I bring all my technical experience into the play over the period of years, and obviously drive my organization through a different level of success, So basically, I thought that, I will put all my technical experience to build those relationships with my clients, with my stakeholders, and as I rose through the ranks to my current role of an India head for a software company, I still have not lost that touch or the focus with the technology, because what happens is, if you have that a classic blend of technical as well as the managerial experience, you actually can have a lot of meaningful conversations at all levels, So it could be the younger lot who are just starting with their career, or the fresh graduates, or relatively younger population in your company, as well as your peers in the industry, your management, your global stakeholders. It gives a great experience and great leverage to put everything into the play that I've kind of gathered over the past 27 years. So as I said, starting as a techie software developer till my current role as an India head for a software company, it has been a really, really great experience where I actually got to learn a lot of things. So I'm still kind of maintaining that techno managerial background so that I don't lose touch with the technology as we kind of progress. Yeah.
Yeah, right, perfectly right. So, there are examples like, say, Infosys, where
Yeah.
Narayan Murthy himself, with a complete technical background, rose to be the founder of the company. But there are
Yeah.
examples as well where someone from the HR department went to the top,
Yeah.
right? And someone
Yeah.
even from the finance department went to the top.
Yes.
So I'm
Yes.
sure in your rise from being a techie to being a CEO,
Yep.
also must have seen some stiff competition from various departments. So, what are your takeaways from your experiences in this particular aspect?
Well, actually, in my case, I actually chose I was very mindful of what my career path has to be.
Yeah.
So if you look at my career trajectory, as and when I have moved across the organizations, my organization size has gone down. So if I were to cite an example, I spent a significant amount of time with a 100,000 plus size company where I was into a mid to senior management level. But my next career trajectory was a relatively smaller company where I got to lead a more responsible role, I would say, or have a more responsible
Right,
role,
right,
where so my impact was more in a smaller company than what I had in the bigger company, right? And
right.
that is what I feel, that if I were to not work against a competition, but actually be my own competition, I would say, because that is very important.
Right.
I am fighting against my own
Absolutely.
competencies. I want to make sure that I keep on excelling as I move forward. And what that has helped me is, to have a completely different perspective, because when you are your own competition, you continuously strive for that excellence in whatever you do, right? It could be today I'm in an IT industry, but if I were in the manufacturing industry, my attitude would have been the same, right? So when I eventually moved my roles, the sizes of the organization have slightly decreased, but my role has actually gone up, which
Less
means
increased.
that
Yeah.
I've made more and more impact. So I would rather be
Wider growth. Yeah.
an impactful person in a smaller organization than a relatively less an impactful person in a bigger organization, because
Right.
that will help you differentiate yourself from the others. So I hope that helped, sir.
Understood. Understood.
Yeah.
So like you said, you have been challenging yourself, and that's the way you went up the ladder. But then I'm sure there would be some other challenges as well.
Yes.
So what kind of challenges were there?
I would actually let me just take a step back. I will blend my answer in two parts. Okay. So one is, when I progressed my career over the period of years, there were a lot of takeaways for me. So for example, in the beginning of my journey, there was a different takeaway in the sense that I have to be technically excellent to kind of move the roles upwards, right? And then basically, this is something which I've actually shared a lot with my peers as well, in terms of how what sort of experiences I've actually gained, or the takeaways that I've had. Because I can actually, when you share those experiences with others, actually you also get to learn about new experiences as well, right? And basically, one of the things which I've also learned is, no matter where you work, irrespective of the geography or an organization, it is always good, or it is in the best of your interest to blend with that particular culture, right? So if I'm in the US or in the UK, both the countries have their own culture, and same with corporate culture as well as social culture, right? So
Yeah.
the sooner you blend, your challenges kind of become less and less, right? So it could be a big organization versus a small organization. If you're able to blend yourself very seamlessly, then you are able to establish greatly a rapport with your colleagues as well as your management, or your stakeholders,
Right.
and gain that trust factor, which is very important in the corporate journey, I would say,
Absolutely.
because
Absolutely.
everything works on trust. Yeah. And basically, the other takeaway that I saw myself as a continuous learner. What that means is that in all the walks of your life, in your corporate life, obviously, you meet a lot of people at different levels, right? So whenever I speak to a person, there is always a learning. So it couldn't make a difference to me whether that person is a developer or a CEO of the company. Everyone brings a different perspective altogether, right? So I always kind of talk to that person to hear something from them, to
Right.
know something, to learn something new, basically, right?
Absolutely.
And what happens is, it also helps me stay relevant with what is happening. Okay, so I've got a great amount of learning to take from younger generation.
So you're feeling the pulse all the time.
Absolutely, absolutely. You're absolutely right. Yeah. And then because they bring a different perspective from a technology angle, right? Because the technology that I was exposed to 25 years back and now there is a stark difference, right? And what I'm telling you is, the takeaways actually help you handle the challenges in a very different way. So I'll come to your question now, right? So because if I were to, talk about any specific challenges, there are different challenges that you kind of encounter in your professional life, right? So, for example, if I'm a developer, my challenges are to write a code, which is a software code, which is producing less and less bugs, which means that it will work very quickly. As and when you actually move up in the ladder of the management, you've got a team to manage, right? So you have to keep the teams motivated. You have to make sure that you are actually fulfilling all their aspirations. But the downside of that is you're also answerable upwards, which means that you have your management sitting on the top, who are expecting something out of you, that your team is working very efficiently, right? And now, when I've taken this executive role of heading an India center, there are different challenges altogether because it is not just the technology field that I think you were talking about.
All aspects of business, all aspects.
Absolutely. You touched upon things like HR and finance earlier, right?
So in fact, that is my next question. So as a CEO, now you are not responsible. I mean, you are not just looking after the technology aspect, which is your core. But now, you have the routine operations to manage, the business operations to manage. You have the business development, sales, marketing, you have the finance, and you have the customer care. So what attracts you most, and where do you think you need to put your finger and put your personal focus?
See, actually, I believe in developing a strong leadership team. Okay. So what happens is, if you're great in delegation, so first of all, leaders actually should create more leaders. Okay. So that is the motto, which means that you are empowering more people to do their jobs very effectively. Okay. So today, if I have got someone who's heading the HR organization, who's heading the finance organization, who's running the IT infrastructure or within my company for India as a location, I will make sure that I provide them all the enablement, all the empowerment, so that they can make their own decisions. Okay, it is not that I want to shy away from the responsibilities, but I want to make sure that they also develop themselves as great leaders, which means that they will create more leaders in the pipeline, which means that you are actually making an organization which is
a great thing to do. Yeah, fantastic.
Really, yeah. So self-organizing company is what we call, right? And then in that whole aspect, as I said earlier, I'm getting to learn a great amount of things from my HR head in terms of how the people culture should be in the company.
Right.
I bring my own experience, and I obviously am not an HR expert, but I will actually get
to vast experience. You have a vast experience. You may not have perforce been a HR person yourself.
Yes.
You have seen a lot of businesses. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's the reason when I generally talk to my HR or my finance person, we kind of collaborate. So I consider them as not my reporting staff, but I consider them as equal partners in running this organization very effectively, which means that, coming back to my original topic about the trust. So the more you trust them more you trust their abilities, the better they will perform, right? And then the freedom, the empowerment is all about, and then they are your internal champions is what I call it. So when I say they are your champions, which means when you're in an executive position, if you have a great support from your own leadership, then that is one of the recipes for success, so which means that you're building a very strong culture, an inclusive culture, a culture that actually encourages innovation, and a culture that encourages, empowerment to speak your mind. And unless until you do that, your organization will not be robust in terms of, a corporate well-being is what I would say, So those are some of the things. But one thing which I've always maintained is that any challenge is always an opportunity to improve. Absolutely. So in past, if I've had some bad bosses, who have not been able to establish a rapport with, I've always looked at as an opportunity to not fix myself, but how to deal with the people. Okay. So if I'm having a problem dealing with the finance or an HR person, I always feel, okay, if I were to put myself in their shoes, how would I look at the matter, right? And that actually has helped me when you talk about thinking from other people's shoes, it actually changes the dynamics completely.
It helps you
Where
make better decisions. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. So those are some of the things which I would also,
Right,
I would count as challenges,
right.
come learning, come opportunities.
Yeah. Right. So, what do you think are the personal skills and traits that one should possess to be successful, in following your kind of path?
Okay, fantastic. I think that is one of the other things that I always love to share, not just with the people in the IT industry, but in general, right? Because some of the experiences that I've learned or I've got by not doing certain things, I would want the people not to repeat them, right? So, for example, always be inquisitive, right? Inquisitive, curious. That is one of the things which is always important at all levels. Basically, if you ask relevant questions, there is no harm in asking questions, because if you don't ask questions, you will not gain anything as far as your knowledge is concerned, right? So always ask questions, no matter how stupid they are. Don't be apologetic when you ask a question, right? Because for you, if even if that question is a very stupid question, the other person may feel, okay, it's a very relevant question, right? So always be curious. And one of the things which I have learned to deal with, which I did not in my formative years, and I'm very candid to admit that, is accept challenges. And accept challenges, which means that even if it is beyond your capacity, there is always a solution to a problem. It is a universal truth. You have a problem, there is a solution. There may not be a very straightforward solution, but there is a solution basically. And your continuous learning will always give you that mindset of being a very solution focused person. So I give you an example. If someone comes to me that, okay, Mandar, I am kind of trying to solve this problem, but I'm finding this a bit hard to solve, And then one thing which I always ask them is, okay, you have come to me with a problem, but tell me about what solution you've thought about as well. Okay, so it is not to challenge that person or to put that person in the spotlight. I want to instigate that person in a very good way to be solution focused as well. So which means that if you challenge their thought process, they themselves will realize that, okay, I'm going to my leadership for a problem, but okay, let me also take a step back and see, okay, can I also find a solution for that problem? Okay, yeah. And that actually is a great trait to put or to inculcate within yourself, because you will learn to deal with all these challenges and problems going forward, right? And then basically, one of the other things which I've learned always, and that was because I was a part of different cultures, geography, as well as different corporate cultures, is how well you treat people. Okay, which means that whenever I'm not around, or if I move to a different organization, people should not remember me only for my achievements, but also the way I treat people at all the levels, right? So that respect that you command, not in a good way, obviously. Absolutely. You are here to build relationships, and I don't believe in burning bridges. So no matter how bad a conversation goes, I always make sure that it ends on a good note. So building relationships, treating people well is an absolute must, as and when you are, rising through your corporate journey, because I am actually a very people's person as far as my corporate life is concerned. I love to talk to people, and I consider that people are one of the biggest assets that an organization can have, because it's because of the people that a company or goes forward, right? And that is your greatest intellectual asset, I would say. Absolutely. So that is the treasure that you need to preserve. And if you treat them, they will treat you well, especially in the current IT industry market, where the market is really, really competitive. You need to preserve your assets. And so those are some of the personality traits that I have tried to maintain.
Building relationship cannot be more emphasized more than what you said.
Yes,
very, very true. So coming to my last question, Mandar.
Sure.
It's a well-known fact. I mean, if you study the entire past century, every few decades, the way people do business has changed.
Yes.
What has changed? That technology.
Yes.
And software IT is one of the key components of the technological developments that are happening globally. Yes. So how do you see the future? What are the future trends in your kind of business, and how are they going to impact the future businesses?
Absolutely. A very relevant question, because the technology has been evolving over several decades, right? So if I were to give an example, when I graduated, internet and email were making their mark on the world, right?
Right.
They were like invented a few years before that, but it only started to make a greater impact in the early 90s. Okay. As opposed to that, the kids these days, they have a smartphone and they have a large trove of information on their fingertips, right?
Yeah.
And I believe technology is going to form a basic framework, irrespective of the industries. So it could be either in medical sciences, it could be manufacturing, it could be automotive. You can see, or agriculture, I would say. You can see technology.
Basically, industry agnostic. I mean, the impact is going to be right.
Yes, I think it is going to be a very essential thing, like air and water, I would say, right? To basically sustain or to take us to our next industrial revolution. How well can we use the technology in all these sectors that I just mentioned? So things like artificial intelligence, machine learning,
IoT.
Augmented reality, IoT, and all those things are making a great impact on the humankind as such, because I see that there are a lot of use cases, and India possibly is also making a great amount of progress, even though we are still a bit nascent in all those things. But I'm sure with the great focus on the technology and our startup ecosystem is kind of really showing a fantastic and encouraging scenario, with a lot of unicorns being coming up. So I believe that there is no dearth of ideas. There is no dearth of thought process. I think we have got young, fresh minds who are thinking out of the box, trying to solve all those business problems with the help of technology in all the sectors. And I think sky is the limit. And I believe that all the challenges that the humankind currently faces, we can possibly surmount those in the coming decades. That is something which I'm pretty sure about it, and make our lives manageable by leveraging the power of technology, I would say. Fantastic. I think that is something which I'm really, really looking forward to, and it is going to be part of my learning process going forward as well.
Right. True. I hope what you say comes out to be true.
Absolutely.
So for paucity of time, we'll have to stop here. And thank you very much, Mandar. It's been really wonderful having you on our show. And I'm sure people who are going to watch your interview, the youngsters, are going to immensely benefit, and they will have fair idea as to what to do in order to progress and follow the path that you did. Thank you so much, Mandar. All the best.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you very much.